Hey friends, so I've made an instrument that I'm really excited about. It's somewhat of a discovery for me, and I want to give you this instrument for free. You can just go download it right now. This is what I'm calling a drift swarm, and the idea around this is based on the synthesis concept of a quadrature LFO. But in this case, this is more like an octature LFO, and the idea is that there is an array of 8 drift instances, and each one of them has a LFO that's attached to it that's determining basically its volume, but also a couple other interesting features. And each one of these drifts is also what I like to call an RPG, or a random preset generator, where every time you hit the R key on this Ableton set, you get a completely different sound. Let's go ahead and listen to some sound examples of what this thing can do before we dive into how to use it. Okay, so here is Drift Swarm, and you might be looking at this and saying there's only 4 knobs. Like, how is this an awesome instrument, or how is this a breakthrough at all? Well, this is essentially a bunch of rackception, meaning that there are a bunch of different drifts, and each one of them have an LFO, and it's totally crazy. But for now, I'm going to close all this down, and I just want to go over some of the basic top-level features. So I'm just going to play an E flat, and I'm going to hit the R key, and what the R key does is it randomizes all the drifts so that they will sound different each time they cycle through. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this. Let's go ahead and spin this up a little bit faster. So right now the LFO is running slowly. So as we crossfade between each one of these drifts, it's not changing very quickly. So let's go ahead and make this faster. So to me, this sort of sounds like wavetable bass, like something you might make with a wavetable. And really, this is very similar to that, because essentially you've got 8 waveforms, and we're smoothly crossfading between each one of them. But we're using drift, and drift is an analog synthesizer, right? It's got an analog sound to it. It's supposed to sound like an analog polysynth. But there's some key differences here. Every time you hit the R key, you're going to be generating a brand new sound that nobody else has. They'll be similar. These are all kind of either square or saw waves that are being generated, but you can do some really interesting things with this setup. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and let's take a look at some of the interesting things that you can do. So first of all, again, whenever I hit the R key, it's going to hit all the rand buttons on each one of these drifts and get us a different sound, right? So you can see it kind of cycling through all these different sounds. But something that's interesting is if I go into the mapping menu, you can go down to this thing called phase, and there is a percentage offset that you can offset the phase of each one of these LFOs. And if you look over here, you can see I've got it offset by as close to 12.5% as I could for each one of these LFOs. And so what this allows me to do is something very interesting. If I take my phase control and I set it all the way to 0, take a listen. We get basically a tremolo, right? So as I play with my rate, I can get... But as I turn up my phase, I will start to phase each one of these waves out of each other. And when I turn my phase all the way up to 127, they are perfectly decoupled or distributed from each other. So we get this nice, smooth, kind of like droning pad. So, you don't have to play bass with this. You can play, some chords. I'll go ahead and turn off mapping now so we can look at these pretty faders going up and down. It's really satisfying to watch. Now, a lot of the magic happens when you start to explore the different LFO shapes. Right now, the LFO is set on sine, so of course this gives us access to like our drone kind of sounds or our pads. And this sounds cool, and as you can hear, but as you start to move up through the different shapes, there's some really interesting things that can start to happen. First of all, if you go up into maybe like the 50s, you end up going from sine to a triangle. So that's the triangle sound, and here is the sine sound. So the triangle is a little bit less smooth than the sine because the way that we hear things is in a logarithmic or exponential fashion versus a linear fashion, which is what a triangle does. But it sort of isolates each one of the waves a little bit more. Now, another thing that's interesting is that each one of these LFOs has a different shape style. So if I look at the shape right now, we can see this perfect triangle, right? But if I go back here and I change my shape to something low, check this out. What it's going to do is it's going to start to cycle through that triangle faster than the full cycle of the LFO, and you get this effect. You hear those rhythms emerging? Let's make this really low. Now check this out. So that's the triangle waveform, but it really gets interesting when we start to explore the ramp waveforms or the saw waveforms. So let's go ahead and we'll return my wave shape back to normal. And let's go ahead and look at our LFO. And right now we're in ramp up mode. So we get this kind of sound. Right? So this is just a classic ramp up. But something that's great about doing this is that when you bring all of the LFOs out of phase with each other, or in other words, you distribute the phases, you get the sort of reverse effect. Let's get a different sound going. Really cool, right? So it gets even cooler than that. So check this out. So right now we're in a saw up. Let's go ahead and we'll change our waveform again, and now we're in a saw down mode. And now we can see each one of these moving. Now check this out. If we sync the LFO, let's go ahead and play this. I have a little kick drum loop here. Take a listen to this. So right now I could pull my phase down and I could put my LFO rate at like a quarter note or something. Right, and so of course it's just playing along with that kick drum. But something I could do is I could make my LFO rate a lot longer. Something like, yeah, let's try for 2 bars. Okay, so right now, of course, all of those LFOs are playing at the same time and it's making it very loud, right? If I turn my phase all the way up, what I'm doing is I'm now equally distributing all of these different drifts to kind of make a little note every time an 1/8 note division of 2 bars happens. So take a listen now. Now, if I speed this up, check this out. You see where I'm going with this? Now check this out. If I turn my wave shape down, what that does to these saw waveforms is it makes them shorter. So let's make them shorter. Uh-oh, we got a sequencer, right? Let's go ahead and randomize it. Right, and so you could use this as a sequencer too. You could go ahead and mute a couple of these and get like a, you know. So because these LFOs are distributed perfectly, you can use it sort of like a sequencer, right? And that's so fun. You can just keep hitting the R key. And get all these different results. Now this gets even crazier when you start to use, I bet you can think what I'm going to do next, an arpeggiator, right? So, you know, we could play an interesting chord or something. Let's go ahead and use down up. Yeah, so there's so many opportunities for doing really interesting things when it comes to syncing these. And okay, so you might be looking at this and being like, all right, man, like that's all fine and good, but I have no idea how to get there. Well, what I've included with this is a bunch of variations that get you right to the different ways of using this that I've already showed you here. So first of all, if you want to use the standard pad, just click on Pad Me, right? And I can just play. I can get that classic pad sound and then the reverser, of course. And remember, this is all synced, so if I play my beat, or that sequencer kind of style. Now, the next mode is called Droner, and this one's interesting because this actually just takes advantage of the fact that the LFOs can actually be set so that they just do random things. Let's take a look at the LFO right now. So what's happening is that it's on what's called glider mode. And the idea here is that it is just a very slow but sure sort of undulation between random values. And so because of that, I'm going to hit R a bunch of times. Now we have some random drone that we've made, and let's go ahead and play a drone. So each one of these LFOs is in a uniquely different position at any one given moment, sort of fading up and down the volume. And so this can be really useful for making drones, of course. And then finally, we have tremolo mode, which essentially, it phases all the LFOs back together and then puts you on triangle mode, giving you a really kind of distinct sort of tremolo kind of sound. You know, so you can fade in really interesting chords. Right? Okay, so you might be listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I really wish he would have involved a filter in all of this. Now, there are filters on the individual drifts, but what I agree that this actually is ripe for filtering. That's what's so fun about this instrument. I kind of set it up so that you can sort of get like a basic sound, and then you can take it as far as you want it, run it through all types of different filters. This is sort of you could think of this as sort of like the oscillator section of a larger, more interesting, crazy instrument. And so, but with that, I want to transition into that I have decided to start trying to build what I'm calling Filter Swarm. And the idea here is that this is a stack of 8 auto filters with sort of an octature or quadrature, but in this case, octature set up to their LFOs. So now you can get some interesting filtration going on, but what we can do is we can pan spread the offset filters. Now, I'm not going to be giving Filter Swarm out to everybody because, first of all, it's not done. And second of all, I'm going to reserve this for the students in my courses. In case you don't know, I teach Ableton at a really crazy high level with 4 different courses that you can take. This would be sort of in the sound design area. But I also teach one on mixing, one on songwriting and composition, and then, of course, one on live performance. So if you want to support me and the channel, definitely check out my courses. And, of course, please download this instrument. It comes as an Ableton set. You don't need Suite. You can do it with Intro, but you definitely need the latest version of Ableton. So if you like this kind of thing, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Much love, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you.